It takes a rare couple to create and raise and nurture a talented curator. I'd like first to thank Lauren and Michael Battle, Sarah's parents, for being here. For those of you who hadn't arrived when I earlier said that we were going to be delayed 5 or 10 minutes, I did a brief introduction of myself. I'll do it again. I'm Dick Clay. I'm a member of the SPEED's Board of Trustees Emeritus, and I sit on its executive committee. And I'm here to welcome Sarah and thank all of you as well during this time of transition, and to welcome our panel, which Sarah will do. So Sarah Battle is a graduate of Bucknell University. She also has a master's in museums studies from Johns Hopkins. The SPEED is fortunate to have her as a research curator. For those of you who were at the Robert Carter exhibit Friday evening, Sarah is the young, accomplished curator who put all of that together. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn this over to Sarah, who will introduce this distinguished panel, and let's have some good fun.
Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Thank you so much for that really great introduction, and hi to my parents as well. For those who may not know me, my name is Sarah Battle, and again, I'm a research curator at the SPEED Art Museum. I have the great privilege of introducing this program. Now, I'm not going to spend time introducing our speakers or the moderator, because if I tried to briefly outline the varying accomplishments that even one person on this stage has accomplished in their careers, I'd still be standing for the remainder of our program time sharing introductory remarks. Now, I don't want to be flippant, so if you do not know about these artists or this historian that's going to be speaking today, please Google. The SPEED webpage has some bio information to start your research journey. Rather, my remarks today focus on the events and the people shaping this moment. This program comes at the heels of an opening downtown honoring one of the panelists, who should be here any moment or so, Mr. Robert Graham Carter. Mr. Carter's work is being honored at his alma mater, the University of Louisville, at their Cressman Center located 100E Main Street. If you do not join the opening on Friday, I highly recommend you make the time over the next 2 months to see the show. These works were selected in conversation with the artist, as well as Camille Pratt, who's in the audience somewhere, to showcase the main themes most dear to his lifelong studio practice. More immediately, however, Louisville audiences, you all, have a chance to see work by Mr. Carter on site today. His incredible mixed media work, Come Back Next Week, is currently on view in the contemporary art section of the museum. So just a little yonder over there. This piece marks the first work by the artist acquired by his hometown art museum. This acquisition was made possible thanks to conversations led by my former colleague, Dr. Fari Nzinga. Dr. Nzinga is also the curator of the exhibition currently on view upstairs, Louisville's Black Avant-Garde, Gloucester, Caliman Coxe, or GC Coxe. I'd intentionally coordinated Mr. Carter's exhibition downtown to overlap with the timing of Dr. Nzinga's solo show on GC Coxe. This is because we wanted the shows to overlap so that Louisville audiences could see the exemplary works by two artists affiliated with the Gallery Enterprises and the Louisville Art Workshop, two very important African-American-led art collectives in the mid-20th century, which you'll hear a lot about today. So once more, please make sure you see the exhibition on GC Coxe upstairs and the work by Robert Graham Carter after this program. There are so many reasons why this program is special and necessary, but I would be remiss if I did not end my remarks by underscoring how this panel came to be. When Dr. Nzinga and I first thought through public program options we could pursue during the run of these two important shows, I could not help but think back on a previous program in Louisville that has always stuck with me as I researched the legacies of Louisville art. When I initially began researching this period of American art several years ago, I inevitably spent a lot of time with the artist, Ed Hamilton, who's on this panel. This is because Mr. Hamilton is not only a nationally acclaimed artist, but he is a low-key hoarder. And thank God for that. Thanks to his archive, I was able to learn of a program held here in August 2006, almost 20 years ago exactly. And here's a little program flyer. You can come up to me after the program to see it if you were not there for it. This program was made by the arts administrator, Priscilla Cooper, and she had moderated a panel that was titled The Louisville Art Workshop, a Community Conversation. And this panel included the greats like the late Professor Robert L. Douglas, Sam Gilliam, as well as Miss Lucille and Ed Hamilton. As an aside, she tried very hard to travel to Louisville, Miss Priscilla Cooper, to be here today. She could not, so I want to share with you all that this panel is in honor of her ongoing care and advocacy for Louisville's African American history and culture. And so with all that, I would like to welcome to the podium the Mr. Ken Clay. Mr. Clay will share a quick overview of the history informing the artistic landscape the panelists built their careers on. Mr. Clay.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Let me get situated up here. I am charged with talking about a place, a time here in Louisville that's very dear to my heart and very dear to the hearts of many African Americans in this city. A place called Walnut Street. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Old Louisville and wondered where this place is because it doesn't exist anymore, it's located in downtown Louisville, runs east through the Central Business District and on to the west side of the city, Walnut Street. The name was changed in 1978 in honor of one of Louisville's most prominent native sons, Muhammad Ali. So Walnut Street is now called Muhammad Ali Boulevard. I know he's still proud of that. African Americans began concentrating along Walnut Street between 6th and 13th Street right before the Civil War. And over the next several decades, they became an even larger minority and eventually a majority of residents in this section of town. And as the Black residential presence became more significant, Black businesses became more numerous. And at one time, there were over 150 Black-owned businesses on Walnut Street, including a Black-owned bank, 3 major Black-owned insurance companies that had regional outreach. There were grocery stores, restaurants, professional offices of doctors, lawyers, dentists, accountants. If you were Black and you had to go see a doctor, you'd end up on Walnut Street. There were 3 movie houses and an assortment of other businesses on this place we call Walnut Street. Now, there's a tendency when you talk about Walnut Street to just look at this one block, the Walnut Street Strip, as I refer to it, but that's where all the action was. back in those days where the entertainment and nightlife were skyrocketing for black folks. But there's another street there that I just kind of want to mention because I think there's a linkage to them. The other street I'm talking about is a street called Chestnut. Chestnut Street was a block south of Walnut Street, and it contained, one thing it contained was Central High School. And at one time it was called Central Colored High School. That's the only high school in the whole city of Louisville, public high school, that blacks could go during the period of segregation. We had one public high school, and it was Central, but it was located right down on Chestnut Street. The Western Branch Library, which was one of the very first Carnegie-funded libraries in the country, also was located on Chestnut Street. You had the Chestnut Street YMCA, and the many, many churches, Quinn Chapel Church, which would later become the center for the kind of the kickoff point for the sit-ins of the 50s, right down there on Chestnut Street. There was a Hooks Hotel, the Louisville Defender offices, newspaper offices, right there on Chestnut Street. So you see, a lot of good, positive things were going on Chestnut Street, while at the same time, a lot of things were happening on Walnut Street. And the yin-yang of these two streets kind of made that area a very special area and one a beneficial area for Black Louisville during those days. But Walnut Street was a place for the entertainment. That's where you want to go to enjoy yourself. There were many, many places. One of them was called the Little Doggy. One was called Bucket and Lena's. There was a place called Buckhart's where you could go and get a bowl of beans for 15 cents or a quarter back in those days. And I recall, I never went in there, but I used to look through the windows, and they had these tall tables, and the guys who were eating the bowl of beans were standing rather than sitting. It was a weird view for me, but they were there, and they were scarfing to death. And then there was a place called Charlie Moore's, the Czar's Club. Very interesting thing with the Czar's Club. It was founded by the black waiters who worked downtown on 4th and 4th Street in the downtown area. They worked at the hotels and the restaurants. And of course, it was segregation, so black people couldn't eat in there, couldn't be served in there. But the blacks worked there. And they established their own club on 7th Street, right off of Walnut, where they could go and be entertained and entertain themselves. And it became very, very successful and a very popular club. They did a lot of great things for the entire African-American community. And they would have events and parties and socials down at the Czar's Club. And it was just a wonderful example, you know, of these guys giving back to the community right off Walnut Street, the major thoroughfare for black Louisvillians during that time. Now, Walnut Street was a place to be for entertainment. They had the very best in entertainment. They had people like Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, Dinah Washington and B.B. King, folks like that performing there at the Top Hat. Cannonball Adderley, I recall, was stationed at Fort Knox. He was a soldier out in Fort Knox. But he used to come in town on Sundays and go to the Top Hat to play at the Sunday jam sessions that they had going on at the Top Hat. It was named, the Top Hat was owned rather, by a guy by the name of Robert Williams. But everybody just called him Rivers. And I think he got that name because he came from the Three Rivers district up around Pittsburgh. And River was a very kind of quiet guy, but the manager of the Top Hat was a lady by the name of Frankie Maxwell. Frankie Maxwell, she was a classy lady and a very colorful person. I had the opportunity to meet and work with Frankie when I established the Midnight Ramble series at the Kentucky Center for the Arts back in 1985. She told me some stories about the top hat you wouldn't believe. She even got shot. She told me about the time she got shot. And she told me also, Top Hat had this magnificent bar that Rivers himself built. And she told me about that. The bar, he put glass brick and neon lighting in the bar to, have the lights shine through the glass brick. And it kind of moved around the walls at the Top Hat. And it became known. People loved that bar. So much other bars around town began to try to emulate that bar. Never as successful, of course, as the Top Hat. Now, on Derby time, the Kentucky Derby, when that came to town, Walnut Street was the place to be and to be seen. People came in from all over the country. They flew in, flew in from New York, from California. They drove in from St. Louis, Chicago, and other places like that. Walnut Street was a jumping area back in those days. When people came to Walnut Street, many of them drove in, and they were driving these big Cadillacs, Walnuts and the big long cars, and they dressed to the nines. It was, they dressed in the latest styles, and the men and beautiful women there enjoyed the nightlife of Walnut Street. And some people began to call Walnut Street Cadillac Row because of all the cars that were parked and were driven on Walnut Street. Back in '85, I did a thing at the Center for the Arts called the Midnight Ramble, and I put together a book. This book is only one left, I think, that I have at least, but it's about Walnut Street. And in this book contains interviews of people that I had interviewed and photos of people who bought photos about Walnut Street and their experiences. And I talked to a guy who was a bartender at the Top Hat. His name was Norman Ellis. And he told me about Derby. He said, at Derby, they'd come in from the time we opened to the time we closed. A lot of them didn't even go to the racetrack. They watched it on TV or listened to it on the radio. People came not to see the Derby, but to mingle and to meet people. Another lady, Irene Miller, who was a resident of a senior citizens home, she said, on Derby Day, Walnut Street would be packed and jammed. People would be dressed in their finest clothes, and after the running of the Kentucky Derby, people would meet on Walnut Street and have fun. It was a place you could count on meeting old friends or someone you hadn't seen for a long time. Walnut Street was a place for blacks to go for enjoyment and have a good time. That's how I remember Walnut Street when it was alive. Harrison Gray, another senior citizen there, remembered there was more money on Walnut Street during the Derby than at the Fort Knox Mint. You just can't imagine how much money was spent there. Now, in the late 50s and the early 60s, urban renewal came on the scene. And it focused its might on Louisville as it went to a lot of major cities and focused its might primarily, it seems, on black districts in these cities. And in Louisville, it was Walnut Street. It fell on Walnut Street, an area bounded by Broadway and 6th, 15th, and Market, with the sledgehammer and wrecking balls of urban renewal. It demolished nearly every structure except for the Mammoth Life Insurance Building at 6th and Walnut, and the Church of Our Merciful Savior at 11th and Walnut. It was a terrible scene, you guys who weren't there. I was there to see the destruction. And this action calls one of our artists, G.C. Coxe, who had done work at the Mammoth Life, who had done work at the Lyric and the Palace Theater. G.C. had to put down his brush for a minute and pick up a pen to write a poem about this thing. And G.C. said, and this is uncensored, "Jobs were scarce, virginity a bore, and prostitution the only work that had no racial barriers. Groans of bulldozers pushing, scraping, loading brick rubble and the past of those who once lived there into trucks that rumbled away and spilled that life onto dump heaps. Go west, goddammit, go west." That was G.C. I think the west he might have been talking about was probably West Louisville, where he eventually lived down near the Western Parkway. Mentioning G.C. Coxe and preparing to just make the statements here for you today, I began to think of other Louisvillians and other artists who've been affected so much by Louisville and by Walnut Street. And I've been recently researching a guy by the name of Ted Jones. He spells his name Jones, Joans. Ted Jones was an artist. Ted Jones was a musician. Ted Jones was a poet. Ted Jones lived in Louisville for a period of his life. This was a multi-talented individual who was a usher at the Palace Theater down on Walnut Street. He went on to do some fantastic things, I think. Some of his works are in major museums across the world. You know, here's a guy that was a jazz poet and friends with people like Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg of the so-called Beat generation back in the 50s. Ted was a roommate with jazz saxophonist Charlie Yardbird Parker. I mean, this is amazing, you know, a roommate. And he is credited with coming up with the saying after Charlie Parker died, he created the saying, "Bird lives, bird lives," where all the jazz enthusiasts refusing to believe the bird had passed on would go around saying, "Bird lives," lives through his music, you know. And he lived in exotic places around the world, two of which I'm going to mention. One is Tangiers, and one is Timbuktu. Fantastic. Right here from Louisville. Now, there's a book out. I haven't read it yet, but there's a book recently out, I believe. It's called Surrealists, The Legend of Ted Jones. I got to get the book, and I suggest you look it up, too. Now, there was a guy by the name of Bob Thompson. We called him Bubba. Bubba and I and my brother used to sing together in a quartet, but he became a very prominent artist, and he, too, right here from Louisville, he, too, affected and shaped by Walnut Street and his experience there. Sam Gilliam, Ken Young, Fred and Anna Baum, and Bob Douglas all tasted the flavors of the Walnut Street entertainment scene, places like Dave's and Joe's Palm Room. And the Brown Derby, where several artist exhibits were held over the years. Bob Carter lived right across the street. He lived in the Beachy Terrace Housing Project. He lived across the street from the clubs and all the bustle and the beauty of Walnut Street. And our own Ed Hamilton, as a young man, grew up on Walnut Street down there between 6th and 7th Street. His parents ran a business called the Euro Valet Shop right at 6th and 7th and Walnut Street. So steeped in the history and surroundings and life of this place that we call Walnut Street. I don't know whether Walnut Street will ever, the spirit of Walnut Street really will ever return. I doubt that seriously. But nonetheless, there are things that are going on, I know, that continue to remind people of Walnut Street. When I went to the Center for the Arts in '85, I started, as I said, a thing called the Midnight Roundup series. It still exists. It still runs at the Center for the Arts. Now, it ain't like it was when I was doing it. I'm going to be very straightforward with that, you know, but nonetheless, it's there. I started, when I retired from the Center, a project that I do at the Kentucky Center for African-American Arts called the Walnut Street Review. I do that annually. So in that sense of the word, we're still, you know, seeing that as one of the legacies of Walnut Street. There's a Black Business Association, and Black businesses now are coming together to be, you know, to show their stuff, to gain some power. That too is probably a legacy of Old Walnut Street. So we're thrilled to death that those things are happening, okay? Now, I'm just going to say thank you so much for having me here this evening, and we're going to turn it over to the panel.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Jennifer Williams. I'll be the moderator of the panel. And we are welcoming Mr. Carter onto the stage. Join me in welcoming Mr. Carter onto the stage.
Hey, Jen, can you switch seats with? Yeah.
Put you right next to me. They're gonna put you next to me.
Yeah, so that
I can't understand what it said. Listen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clay, for that grounding of Walnut Street and giving us the historical background, but also the colorful stories of that space. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the West End there as well. And so I'm just so grateful to be here, and it's an honor to be with the artists that are here at the stage today. I just wanted to open up by thanking everyone for, of course, joining us for this meaningful gathering, celebrating the legacy of Louisville's Black avant-garde and the artistic contributions that have shaped this city and far beyond. I want to begin by thanking the curators, Dr. Farian Dinga and Sarah Battle, along with the exhibition organizers who made this program possible. It's also an honor to acknowledge the families, many of which who are here today in the audience, and communities who have nurtured and stood beside these artists throughout their journeys. Today, we're in conversation with 4 extraordinary creators, Ms. Elmer Lucille Allen, Mr. Robert Graham Carter, Mr. William Duffy, and Mr. Ed Hamilton, whose lives and legacies are deeply intertwined with Louisville's cultural memory and artistic legacy and future as well. So I wanted to begin the conversation by asking you about some of the formative moments when you first recognized your identity as an artist. What were those moments that really helped you identify that this is what you wanted to do? We'll be sharing mics today, so give us a moment as we transition between each. Who would like to begin?
Is this on? Hello.
Perfect.
Hello. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out. This is a wonderful event, and I want to thank Brother Carter for being here with us. Yes, yes.
I'm honored.
Yes, 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 yes. Mhm. And Lucille and my friend Duffy. And I want to thank, shout out to Ms. Jennifer for being moderator. Also a shout out to the museum for providing the space for this. And Sarah and Fari and Zinga as well. You two shaped this whole program, and this is great. And shout out to my friend Bing Hooks, whose father is a part of the legacy as well.
Yes.
Okay, Earl Hooks from Fisk University.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think the question you were asking, what formated
Yeah. What really just sparked your interest? What sparked your joy to become an artist?
I think it was when let's go back. It takes somebody to recognize that you have a talent. And so I honor two teachers. Harriet O'Malley from Parkland Junior High School. Now, had my mother not changed my route from Duval to Parkland, there would be no history. Then high school, Shawnee High School, Patsy Griffith, she saw something, you see. So I think it takes somebody to be able to see the potential that you have. So then once high school, she said, "You're going to art school." And I said, "Oh, I am?" Okay, because I wasn't on the college track, all right? So I didn't really know what I was going to do. But we put together a portfolio and got a 4-year scholarship. And so for 4 years, I was at the Art Center School before it became the Louisville School of Art. And I think it was at that moment, being in that setting, where you're learning all sorts of artistic disciplines. You're learning how to paint. You're learning how to draw. You're learning how to sculpt. You're learning ceramics. You're learning graphic arts. You're learning 3D arts. Life drawing. Oh, boy, life drawing. That was the class.
3 hours at a time.
Oh, yes, 3 hours tops, you know. But anyway, I digress. I digress. But sitting on a bench in the painting studio one day, and we were studying the expressionists, modern expressionist groups, and it just didn't do anything for me. And so all of a sudden, I just took a notion to start painting water scenes, boats, harbor type scenes, okay? So listen to this. The director of the school was entertaining some donors one day that gave to the school. And they were walking around, and they're very aristocratic, you know, and had their little poodle dog nipping at everybody's heels. You know what I'm saying? Dog. Look, get back. Look. So I'm sitting there, I'm just painting. So she leans over on my shoulder and said, "Young man, have you ever been to the ocean, or have you ever seen the ocean?" Well, I thought a minute, because I grew up on 6 and Walnut Street. There wasn't no ocean up there. Now, there was the Ohio River, okay? That's about as close as I could get to the water, you know. And I looked and I said, no, ma'am, I never have been to the ocean. Well, how can you paint something you've never seen? So I laid my brush down and I sat there. Well, the people she was showing the school to, the gentleman, and he was an engineer, artist, very prominent person here in Louisville. He leaned over my shoulder and said, young man, pay no attention to what she just told you. You keep doing what you're doing. Keep painting. I said, thank you. Started back up again.
That's excellent advice.
That gentleman had connections here, and I'm going to give you his name. His name was Norman Coleb. How many of you know that name? Uncle Norman Coleb. And by the time I had graduated, we had started a nice relationship, and I used to help him do his little ballet dancers in bronze and stuff, you see. And so we had a real nice time period together. And matter of fact, he even invested in my building that we bought. So you never know what's going to happen while you're trying to become what you think you want to be.
Yeah, thinking about those seeds that are planted. Absolutely. Who else would go? Who would like to go next? Yes, Ms. Elmer Lucille.
Good afternoon. I'm sitting here talking to you all, but when I went through high school, Central High School, I studied every day. And I was a second honors student, and in order for me to speak, I had to go to this class every day and learn one sentence at a time, and then go home and talk to the mirror. So I tell everybody, if your child stutters, put him in front of a mirror, and then he will learn how to talk. And you say, well, how did I get involved in the arts? I did not really get involved in the arts. The arts got involved in me. I went to school. I graduated I went to Central High School, and I went 2 years to Louisville Municipal High School, College. And then, as you all know, University of Louisville was segregated up until 1951. And then I couldn't afford to go. I sent myself to school. No one in my family finished high school. And I'm very happy. I'm 93 years old. I got a master's in the University of Louisville in 2002. And last year, I was awarded a Doctor of Philosophy of Humane Letters from Spalding University. And you say, well, how did you get involved in the arts? Well, I had arthritis in my hands, and I was told to go to ceramics. And that's how I got started in the arts. And I did ceramics. And then I was also involved with the Kentucky Arts Council. And I went around throughout the state and helped our other organizations, get involved. And as I was doing that, I formed an organization called the Kentucky Coalition for African-American Artists. And I created a directory of all African-American artists in the whole state of Kentucky. And then later, I created a second directory. But I wasn't really doing art, as you say, doing art while I was doing that. But I believe that we have to help each other. And whatever you do, everything you see starts with a dot. If you don't have a dot, you never have anything. And then I got involved with going to ceramics. And then I went to Louisville Metro Art Center and studied art with Marvin Rowe and Laura Ross. And they asked me, said, Lucille, why don't you go to University of Louisville? I hadn't thought about going there, University of Louisville. In 1981, I started the University of Louisville, and I'm still going to University of Louisville. But I have a master's in ceramics and fiber. But I love creating art. But more than that, I love being with people. You know, in other words, you sit and draw, you're in a house by yourself. But if you're in ceramics and stuff like that, you're in a room with other people. I take independent ceramics at U of L, and I go on Mondays and Wednesdays. Even though school's not going on, I still go on Mondays and Wednesdays from 2 to 6. But I think that we need to teach more of our children how to be involved in the arts. In other words, like I say, everything starts with a dot. Everything you see in this room started with a dot. The chair that you're sitting in, this building, it started with a dot. No, architecture. No, and I just think that and then to sit here beside this young man, he lived on 41st Street, and I built a house on 60th, but I never did really meet him until Saturday. And I'm so happy to say that I'm an old woman and you're an old man. Thank you all for being here.
How about you, Mr. Carter?
That's being told where you stand right away. No, I'm kidding in terms of the old man's stage. Listen, I didn't get the memo on what hat to wear.
That's true, though. It's like, could y'all have shared? So much. I love y'all so much. Oh my goodness. Looks good.
I feel like a part of the group now. Some experiences in life is very dramatic and immediate and exciting and romantic and so forth. And some things just grow on us. The first experience that I recall where I thought of art as an entity, I was about 7 years old. And there was an old print on our living room wall of a landscape scene with a cabin in it. And I copied it. And oil paint, about 10 inches or so. And it wasn't very good. But my mother framed it. That was a confirming gesture that I didn't realize its importance at that time. It made it special. As a matter of fact, the frame was better than the artwork. I think of that very often, and had it not been for that particular experience, I might have gone another direction. Probably the next turning point was in high school, where I first met Mr. Coxe. He was a student teacher under Mrs. Watson at that time. And through him and through Mrs. Watson, the art teacher at Central at the time, I found out about University of Louisville. I only had heard of University of Louisville. I'd never been on the campus, and she knew about the Heights Scholarship, and that made it possible for me to go. But if it wasn't for her support, I would never have even known of the location. One other quick thought. how can I phrase this? Louisville was much smaller when I grew up. I did not realize how large Louisville was, and at a certain point you realize that there are many facets, such as, for example, the Derby, that I never was directly exposed to. And Louisville not only has physically changed, but I now have to ask for directions to go from point A to point B. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone coming out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Many of you have highlighted the importance of educators. How about you, Mr. Duffy?
Okay. Thank you all for coming out. We really appreciate this. There's been 3 people that have, aside from my parents and my wife, who I might add, encouraged me, but 3 people who directly got me thinking about using art as a career. And one was my kindergarten teacher, Miss A. Trice. I used to, I have a photograph that I've kept over the years of me sitting at the front of the class with a mimeographed sheet of paper of Red Riding Hood done in brown. So that was the only one there, and it shocked everybody. It's like, well, why brown? It's like, well, I'm brown, so at the time that was my thinking. So when all the crayons went out on the table, I grabbed the brown crayon, and I mean, I gave her a red cape and all, but But anyway, she was the first. The second would be, like Ed, I went to Shawnee High School also some years later. But, and it wasn't Sarah Lansdale who was the art teacher, but my English teacher, Miss Ann Elmore. And she saw my work and said, well, what are you doing with this? It's like, well, I like doing this. I'd like to do a career at this, but I didn't know where to start. She said, well, first thing we're going to do is get your work and show the school. So that's how I was introduced to the school, and the school knew me by the kid that could draw. So, and the third person would be Fred Bond. Fred Bond was the head of the Louisville Art Workshop, which I became a part of a little bit later. But he came to the school in my junior year. I think it was my junior year or senior year. It's been a long time. But he showed slides of all these artists. At the time, granted, like what Mr. Carter was saying, the world seemed small. So I thought I was the only one doing it, So it's like, well, I'm going to be the first to break out of here. And he came to the school and he showed me works by G.C. Coxe. I think he even had some slides of Mr. Carter and Ed and Bubba Thompson, all these guys. And so I really became interested in it. And that's how I became I started inquiring and whatnot, and I too also got a full ride at the Louisville Art Workshop. Not the Louisville Art Workshop, but the Louisville School of Art. And so, yeah, that was my introduction to the art world. And so, yeah, I'm just blessed to have known these people that have come into my life. But also I want to mention one other guy. This was in second grade. There was a guy that sat next to me. We'd get in all kind of trouble and whatnot. His name was William Logan. And he had brought in this drawing. This was a line drawing of Popeye. Oh, that was so clean. The lines were clean, and it was like, wow, your brother's, he's got to be no, a professional artist. Well, later on I found out he traced it. But, and so I got, so he said, you can't have this one, but I'll bring you one. So it's like, he can do this again? It's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, genius. And so I would take it home, and my first stab at drawing was I would put the paper, lay a sheet of paper on top and trace it. And it wasn't too long after that I was able to set it to the side and draw it. And I guess doing that enough times, when you do something over and over again, actually it just becomes a part of you. And so I was able to still see that paper sitting right next to me and draw it line for line that way. And so over time, it started with Popeye and it went on to other characters. And so, yeah, that was my introduction to that. So, yeah, I give thanks to those individuals, as well as my wife.
Wow.
Again,
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for acknowledging and affirming her. I wanted to share, too, that you've often mentioned, each one of you have talked about the importance of the educators in your life, the folks who have encouraged you to continue to grow and to do. But what I've also realized and learned from you all is that you know each other very, very well. So I wanted to pose the question around how has your community, you have meaningful relationships with each. What does it mean to be in creative company with each other? And how has that pushed you all in this community in Louisville to be the artists that you are today?
Well, it's hard to be an artist when you're working by yourself and nobody's seeing what you're doing. When I got the word that my graduate show was only going to be up for a week, I said, who's going to see what I'm doing? So my sculptor instructor at Art Center said, there's a bunch of guys down in the west end of Louisville. I think I'm not sure what it's called, but I know there's some artists down there, some black artists down there. I said, oh, okay. And like Duff said, at one time, I thought I was the only black artist in Louisville. I didn't know these cats was doing what they do. Look, so I immediately, and my show was only going to be up from Sunday to Sunday. And I thought, ain't this, I done spent 4 years knocking this stuff out, painting, sculpting, clay, bronze casting, welding, and you're going to tell me this is only going to be up for a week? So I immediately got in my car, and I went down, I found 35th and Del Park Terrace, and that's where the Louisville Art Workshop was. I knocked on the door. Mr. Bond came to the door. I said, Mr. Bond, I'm Ed Hamilton, and I've spent 4 years in art school, and I've done all these works, but I don't know where I'm going. I don't know. I need somebody to tell me, do I need to go out and get a real job? He said, so I said, would you please come with me and let me take you out and show you what I've been doing. He said, okay, yeah. And Bob Douglas, I think Bob was there too. Mm-hmm. So we got in my little VW, took them out there, and they walked around and saw these big welded pieces and clay works, bronze works. And they said, man, you got to be with us. I said, oh, okay. But who is us? So, fast forward, I get to the workshop, and there was Fred Bond, Bob Douglas, late Bob Douglas, late G. Caliman, Coxe, and all these cats were talking. I mean, I never heard such talking about art, the world, the diaspora, European art, African art. And I just sat there and listened. And then so GC leans over and says, young man, you don't remember me, do you? I said, no, sir, I really don't. He said, well, I remember you when you was this high because I was on 6 and Walnut, running in and out of my dad's shop. And he was there, painting the marquees and stuff. I had no concept of that. So once I became a part of that group, that just opened up the door for not only sharing life stories, working in conjunction, creating works, critiquing each other, drinking a little Old Forester along the way, getting in cars, putting our works in cars and taking it places. And so that camaraderie, you know what I'm saying? So from the workshop, from gallery enterprises that we were just too young to know about at that point, then to the workshop. And then when we got together and created our own studios together, that's when we created our group called Montage, which was a carry-off of the workshop and gallery enterprises. So you see the legacy started early on, and it just continued drifting on down, you see. And so that's the beauty of being a part of a group of like minds and like artists creating, You can't take that away. That's important.
How about you, Mr. Carter?
The human condition seems to be an automatic group experience. As I think about it, Ted Jones was responsible for my becoming aware of the outside art world. And when I came to University of Louisville, I knew names that I would not have known had it not been for Ted Jones. I think about the people I know that love boating. Most of them belong to some sort of a group. People that have motorcycles, people that have cars. I happen to love old and sports cars, and I mention that to say that there are groups that you can belong to and not even own a car, but there is a spark of compatibility because of that interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know you came to the arts in a unique way.
Well, I don't really consider myself an artist. Because I am a chemist, and I tell everybody everything that you make starts with a dot or with water. And I've come along, and I've helped others. When I ran the gallery at Wayside Expressions Gallery for almost 12 years, and I had artists come in, and they had one show. I had one artist every month, and I've have had exhibitions, but I do not look. People, you have to ask. I don't go looking for an exhibition. I don't care about selling work because I got to pay taxes on it. I enjoy creating. And like I say, everything starts with a dot. I love sitting down, and I put everything that I create. If you've seen my work up here, my shibori work, it all starts on graph paper and with shibori, which is a Japanese technique. And I sit down and I hand stitch. And it takes months to create one. And then after you stitch it, you got to pull it up. Then you have to dye it. Then you got to let it get dry and to pull it out. But I just enjoy mathematics, everything. Math, chemistry, and math are two of the things that I do every day. And I just enjoy people looking at my work because you sit down and think, well, you can't do it overnight. It's something that maybe takes 6 months to do. And, but it's what I enjoy doing. And I enjoy helping others. And like I said, I created, and when you sit down, and Ken Clay had an organization called Renaissance, and he created one directory. And then I had a Kentucky Coalition, then I created 2 more. And there has not been any directories made for African Americans since we did that work. Yeah, it's not, and maybe that might be something that that needs to be done. But I think that we need, and you talk about art classes. I took art classes in school, but I took art and ceramics and fiber just to have something to do, and that's what I enjoy doing. I don't care about selling. I like to exhibit, and I just closed down an exhibit last week, and this young man over here, stand up. I'm a ceramic artist, and he purchased 2 pieces from me. Tell him who you are. But I just enjoy creating, and also I enjoy seeing people. And when you sit down, like Sarah Battle, I mean, I'm so glad to see her here, because this possibly would not have been possible had it not been for you. Yeah. So stand up, Sarah. People don't. Yeah, stand up, stand up. But you really never know what people do for you, you know, and how you influence others. And I say, I help others. I could care less what I do, but I believe in helping others. And I came along, I sewed. I used to make all my clothes. I don't sew anymore because it's cheaper to buy a dress than it is to sit down and sew it now, because patterns are high, material is high, and I can go get a dress for $20. I say it's a pleasure to sit here and be beside this young man here. And you never know who you're going to meet in life, you know, as you go along. But I think children all need to know how to do mathematics, a dot, how to do math. And they need to sit down. Everything you make, you don't sell, but you make it and you get the pleasure out of doing it and letting other people enjoy it. Yeah. And I just thank the Speed Museum. Thank you so very much.
Y'all have done a great job of emphasizing the importance of community and connection, but also building institutions, right? Did you also want to share as well?
Yeah, it was like 1973. I would always get that mixed up. But this was while I think it was my second year of art school. The Courier Journal had an article in the paper in the lively arts section that said that there was a new director. And it was this gentleman sitting to the right of me, was Ed Hamilton. And I think at the time he was like 25, 26 years old. Yeah.
That's good, that's good.
That's good.
That's
okay.
good.
And so my introduction to this whole thing, okay, so he had just been named director, and the Louisville Art Workshop had moved its headquarters from Del Park Terrace to 35th and Broadway. So I'm reading this, and it's like, oh, he's got a big afro. Let me go check this guy out. So I get there, and this is funny about relationships. So Ed's not there, but there was this guy who had his back to me, sitting in a room. I knocked on the door, no one came. So I go in and I looked around, and I saw this painting sitting on an easel. I was like, wow, it's like, and I reached up and no one was around, so I touched it. This is a little oil paint came up on my head. I wiped it off, but I'm walking through, and so in this one room, there's this gentleman sitting there with his back to me, and he's painting. It's like, wow, it's like, this must be the same guy. So I go in, and I say, excuse me, sir, I'm looking for Ed Hamilton. He doesn't seem to be here. Would you happen to know? I'm an artist myself, or I'm studying art. So this old guy turns around, and it's like, did anyone let you in? No one came to the door. I just let myself in. And he pulls out this knife. He called it a Barlow knife. He pulls it out on me. And it's like, well, maybe you need to come back. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, maybe I do. So, that's right. And so I'm backing out of the room. You know, I'm keeping my eye on him. It's like, because one of us is going to go, either this old guy right here or me. And so I'm backing out of the room, and he just chuckles in the GC way. Everybody knows his laugh. Come on in, young man. It's like, I'm just teasing you. And I kind of inched back in. It's like, I don't know if you're joking with me or not. But that was my introduction to GC. Through, looking for Ed, I found GC Coxe. And so, so we got to talking, and, he was telling me, so what would you like to do? What are you studying in school? All these type of things. And it was just I knew right then that I belonged. And so I think it was maybe a few days later, I met Ed, and we'd been together ever since. Like, again, that was like 1973. Yeah. And so I've been around these guys my whole life. And yeah, they're as much family as my family, so.
Yeah, I remember when I talked with you online, you talked about being tied at the hip, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned being tied at the hip. And how have you influenced each other in terms of material and how you create your art, how you create your work?
Okay, I'm going to start this one.
Yeah.
Okay. So after I got out of art school, I had no money. And so, no, none of us really had any money, and that's a story for later on maybe. But anyway, the Louisville Art Workshop closed down not too long after, probably 75 or 76. And so we moved to the basement of an architectural firm on Main Street. So we were in the basement. It was dark down there. I mean, dark. And so, yeah, you turn the lights off. It's like, anybody got a torch or something? We can find our way through to the steps. So Fred Bond, G.C. Coxe, Ed, and I, we were in the basement of this building. So GC comes up with this, like a sign or something that goes, was it Ed?
No, he said.
Ed, Fred, and me, or
GC said, I got the name for us.
Yes, right.
He said, me, Ed, and Fred.
That's it. Yeah. And so
Him being the me.
Yeah. And so that's where we work. And I'm telling you, this is no joke. Some of the best work that I've ever witnessed came out of that basement. At the time, Ed was doing a lot of liturgical works, doing tabernacles and Christ figures and whatnot. Fred Bond worked slower, but he had this one piece sticks in my mind, and I can still see it. He did this piece, and it was like a guide, and he was like showing his layout to his land, right? But it was all done in tree bark, and it was a powerful piece. It was, to this day, I can still see that piece laying on the table. And GC at the time was doing. GC was doing a little bit of everything. And there's this one piece that he was working on. It's probably as long as this table. And he worked in a way that I'd never seen anybody work. I mean, he was laying out this canvas, and he was taking hole punches and punching holes in the canvas, right? And I thought, where did he go to school? I'm thinking, this ain't painting, but it shaped me in this way, because he did the painting, but then he would take wire and thread it through so that it almost looked like a bas-relief piece. Like it wasn't just triangles or rectangles or whatnot. It was lifted off the canvas, but it was still on the canvas. And so these wires were pushing it out, making all kinds of shapes and stuff. I mean, this is, I'm still in art school, and I'm looking at all these guys just cranking it. And so me, without any money, I started collecting pieces that I'd find off the street and whatnot. And I'd go to a Salvation Army or some salvage store, and I would buy old clocks and stuff. And one of the first pieces that I made outside of school that I just did for myself was a piece called Spirit Clock. Mm-hmm. And we all have a clock that tells us when we live and when we die. Mm-hmm. But this piece, I took a clock and I rearranged it, and I made it, I put a counterweights on it so that it would move and whatnot, and I don't know whatever happened to the piece, but I had to keep up, in other words. But that was also, I have to say, there was also some funny times too. Fred had this idea, you remember this? He was going to wash the ceramic clay, and he had a washing machine. And he put this clay in a washing machine. Sure did. I don't know how, and the washing machine wouldn't turn. The washing machine would, you gotta be kidding me. You want me to go and spin cycle and do whatever? It's like I'm not budging. And it didn't either. So he had like this whole tub of clay sitting in there. So I think finally he would just scoop it out and use what was needed. But it was those kind of things that just really worked for me, and I just enjoyed it. It's just like being family. You get into all kind of trouble or do things that you think is going to work and it doesn't. So
Steal from each other.
oh yeah, that's another story. But I'll let Ed talk about.
So not only, creating, not only creating new work, but creating new ways to make the work. So new tools, you all adapted to that. I saw that within looking at your work. Yes.
I would just like to say that I'm now an artist. but
up to date.
But like I told you all, I had to start taking classes in ceramics in 1981. And when I graduated from, I went to, I used to study, but in 1997, I retired from Brown-Forman as the first African-American woman chemist. And I started going back to U of L, taking ceramics, and in 2000, they asked me if I would go and work on a master's. And in order to get a master's in ceramics, I had to take fiber. So I have my master's in ceramics and in fiber. But I can still continue to take classes. And I can tell everybody, working with your hands is most important. And also interacting with other people. You learn from other people when you're in their environment. And I just like to say that I thank the Speed Museum for showing the work by G.C. Coxe. And you say, why is G.C. Coxe important to you? Well, I live in Algonquin Gardens, and Mr. Coxe lived within walking distance of my house. And in 2013, I bought his house, and my grandson lives in his house today. Yeah. So you never know, what you do. And I want you to say a few words.
Mama Lucille. Mama Lucille.
Well, my show. Well, it's a privilege being here, and there's a show that I have in downtown Louisville. I'm happy and pleased that it came about.
Yes.
Thanks to the people at Hackshire, which is a museum in New York, and thanks to Sarah, who has made all these things come together. That do okay?
Can I share another
Yes,
quick story?
please. Thank you.
I want to take an opportunity. You never know where your commissions come from, and they don't fall from heaven. Sometimes they just come through spiritualists or whatever. But my very first public work that I ever got, I want to tell you who was responsible for that. Bob Carter's father. You remember that at all? Sure. Bob? Your dad and a gentleman by the name of Stinson Broadus of Louisville, Kentucky here, they were instrumental in building the J.O. Blanton house down at 8th and Muhammad Ali Boulevard. At the time, it was Walnut Street still, but it's now Muhammad Ali Boulevard. So, long story short, Mr. Carter knew me as I was growing up as well. And he contacted me, him and Stinson Broadus, and he said, you know what? We need to recognize, my mind just left me. J.O. Blanton, I'm sorry. We need to recognize J.O. Blanton. And at the time, I was working with Barney Bright. That was when I was an apprentice with the late Barney Bright, sculptor here in town. And they said, can you create a bust? And I said, oh, yeah. So that was my entree into, and I never thought that would be my very first public work. Yeah. The bust of J.O. Blanton that sits in the lobby of the Blanton House down on 8th and Muhammad Ali Boulevard. Due to your dad. And you know how much I got for that? Oh, sky's the limit now.
Sky's the limit.
But back then, it was like $500, you know. But $500 back in 1970, yeah, it was about $5,000 worth of that.
Rich.
Yeah, I'm rich. So I really appreciate that. But that's, again, just by virtue of people that know what you do, recognize your talents, But one more thing, and I'll stop. There is another important entity that was in this town as well at the Louisville Library called the Junior Art Gallery. And Roberta Williams is here, who ran that particular gallery. And we all were part of that. Stand up, Roberta. Come on, girl, stand up there. Let them see. Yeah. They did. She did wonderful exhibitions of artists all over, and we all were part of that at some point, So it was a lot going on in this town for us.
Y'all have really done an amazing job of emphasizing the ways that artists have ran their own spaces and created their own institutions. And I'm thinking about how you've been broadly exhibited, all over the country, all over the world. What do you think about your legacy and what legacy you want to have, and what do you want to pass on to the next generation?
I'm going to take this opportunity to thank my daughter. Just like your daughter, Rob, Heather is looking out for your legacy, you see. So what this is all about is I stood in the middle of the floor one day and I looked around and I thought, what's going to happen to all this stuff? You know what I mean? And so she decided, you know, we need to do something to keep that legacy. So she took upon herself to create a 501c3 and the Ed Hamilton Visitors Conference Center to actually redo that 543 South Shelby studio we all spent time in. Now, whether I'll see it come to fruition or not, but at least it will stand the test of time and be the legacy that, you know, that we can leave. Because when we create these works of art, that's a legacy, you know? That's a legacy for other people to enjoy or to own or to have some part of you. That they don't get the personal side of you, but they get something that you have put out, you see. And the other thing is I want to thank God for my 58 years, 58 years of bliss. Mm-hmm.
Driving us through the mountains to get to Hampton University.
That's right.
That dedication, I don't know how we would have made it.
Mm-hmm.
She was a trooper.
That's
You
right.
hear me?
Indeed,
And I love her for that.
indeed. Amen. You are driving. Yeah,
Yeah,
So-
that was something. And to hear her say that today, when he did his first installation, and when they got ready to install it, they didn't have the tools
No,
to
they
set
didn't.
up, so they had to go get the tools in order to put the statue up. But I drove her and her mother, his mother,
mom, yeah.
and her son and her daughter there. But I do for others. I don't expect people to do for me. I'm a giver versus a taker.
Does anyone else want to share too about the legacy and your families?
Yes, I credit my wife, Sherry. Why don't you stand up, dear? Please stand up. You know, a lot of times, you know, when folks see us, they think, oh, it's like, oh, they're self-made. No, we're wife-made. And, you know, a lot of things that I just overlook or just, you know, don't want to look, she takes care of them. And so, yeah, you know, there's so much, like Lucille was saying, other people get involved in what you do, and then it becomes like a fire. You know, it just keeps building. And I want to go back a little bit about the Booker T. Washington piece. I drove the van, the truck, or whatever you want to call it, cargo van, or whatever, to Hampton. And so we almost missed our exit. So just picture this. How many tons was that thing? 9-ton piece.
9-foot high piece. But
Oh, okay.
Oh, it had to weigh about a couple of thousand pounds.
Oh, at least. And so, and so it's the exit right here. And I was on the expressway, and I slammed on the brakes. I put my foot on the brakes, and that big sculpture came up and got right between us. Booker T's head was like this. And, and it scared both of us to death. But I don't know how we made that trip. So we had to drive to Detroit, Michigan to pick the piece up because it was cast in Pontiac, Michigan. And drive from there to Newport News, Hampton. And that was, once again, you know, it's like Ed would say, it's like, well, is it Stan or Laura?
Oh,
There's
another fine mess
yeah,
you've
there's
got us in.
another fine mess you've gotten us into. But yeah, that you know, there's so many stories, and a lot of them that are untold. But you know, I give thanks for being able to still be here to talk about them, and I like to shift more of what I do to the artists in front of me, because you know, without them, I don't know what I don't know what I would be doing, or even if I would still be here. But again, it goes back to family. You know, you could just walk in any of these guys' studio, or you know, we would, at the end of the day, we would talk about what we were doing and where we wanted to go in our dreams. You know, it wasn't always, we weren't always recognized. I'm speaking about the black artists and just in general. You know, we had to find our own means of communicating with the art world and our people about, you know, what we're doing and where we're trying to go. And so we didn't, you know, the galleries wasn't accepting our work, so we just said, well, let's throw this stuff on top of GC's Riviera, or on top of my I had a deuce and a quarter, Electra 225. Yes, sir. And Ed had this piece. Now I'm getting off script now. No, I'm sorry. But Ed has this piece called Juju Man. We strapped that. It was a monstrosity, and it was like a wire piece, and it had these arms and these spikes coming out everywhere, and it was large. It was probably what do you think, about 6 foot? 6 foot. And we strap it on top of this, and you just can't imagine the looks that we got. You know, at a stoplight, you know, you pull up and someone is looking. It's like, what in the hell is this? What's going on here? And we just kind of wave and go on. But we would set up in music stores, convention centers and whatnot, and then, churches, everywhere that we could get our work exposed, because like a lot of us, folk didn't know that there are black people out here doing this too, and so we didn't. We never tried to force our way in, but we did, in a sense, force our way in, and I think it's all the better for us as well as the community at large that we did.
Let's give credit to the past art critic of the Louisville Courier-Journal back in the day, Sarah Lansdale. Had it not been for Sarah Lansdale, nobody would have known about us. Somehow she just took to us for something, you know. And she loved GC. Now, GC, now tell me, what is the, blah, blah, blah. She's a nice little Southern woman, see? But every Sunday, and when we had a art scene in the paper, we would all wait with bated breath to see who made the art scene in the Sunday paper, see? Now there's nothing now, but she really put us on the map. We've got all kind of articles and stuff that she wrote about the black arts here. And even she understood at a point, she had to realize these are artists who happen to be black. But she was always prefacing black artists. Then all of a sudden it started changing, and now we're just the artists creating these works, you see. But kudos to Sarah Lansdale. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Also, Mr. Carter, I know you have several of your family members here, many generations of your family here. Thank you all for making the trip. I know that each of the families have spent hours and time archiving and creating the legacy and making sure that you'll always be remembered in every way. I know we're approaching the time for Q&A, so if you have any questions, definitely get those ready. I wanted to ask one last question around any ways that you'd like your work to be shared and preserved in a way that you would like to see honored. Today, we are recording this. This recording and documentation will live on forever, but how would you like to see your work shared with the world in the future?
Well, I think I've pretty much already done the work that's going to be out there, that's going to be on view forever and a day. It will outlast me, it'll outlast my family, you know. So that's part of my legacy, you know, the bronzes that you see standing out in the public sector. And please, people, if you're going to steal a hat from Abraham Lincoln, give it back, because we had to make a new one. And then somebody tried to cut the arm off of York to get the rifle, but they didn't get it. So I'm thinking, do you just want a souvenir, or do you just want to use it for scraps? So that's the legacy of public art. You know, you can't deal with it.
All right, any last thoughts here? If not, we'll open it up to Q&A. We have someone going around with a microphone. You'd like to raise your hand so she can identify you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We have time for 2 questions, and then please stick around. We're a little over time, but we've got time for 2 questions, and then please stick around afterwards to talk with our artists.
Greetings. I am so honored and delighted to have this opportunity to present our Black artist extraordinaire with exquisite, magnificent talent. I want to give you thanks. My question, because I've known most of them, including my beloved Lucille Allen, that's real what she says. She's a giver. I served on the board of directors for the Arts Council that she helped create. It was her money. Yeah, I'm going to tell her like it is. With Mama Ya, we've given our organization the foundation they needed to sustain and thrive, which we did because of her. Our Queen Mother, Lucille Allen. Give it up, give it up. And I also want to thank my beloved Ed Hamilton, who has been a phenomenal artist internationally. Nationally, I've seen his work displayed at the Civil Rights Monument that you did, those bronze pieces that you showed in Washington, D.C., where the belated Bud Dorsey, myself, and others went on a tour there. So again, Ed, phenomenal. And I brought some of his work as well as seen many of his exhibits, including right here, many moons ago. And then I want to honor Ken Clay. Yes, Ken. Ken, you have been a phenomenal giver in this community. I thank you for bringing the arts in all its forms. As an artist, my name is Dr. Angela Jackson Brown. I want to commend all of them. We need to acknowledge our living legends, including those that have graced us with their gift. Where there's art, there is life. So with that said, what do you say for the next generation of artists on how they need to develop their art and get it out there to the people, to the world, to make a difference of love and raising the vibration of humanity?
study all you can, find those that you are admiring, go to them, talk to them, listen to their advice, go to every gallery, go to every museum, because you can now. You see, back in the day you could.
That's right.
But, and don't be afraid to pump the palm, because when you greet somebody, that opens up the door for dialogue, you see. And be serious about what you're gonna do. If you're not gonna be serious, then just go out and get your 9 to 5 someplace else, you know. But it takes stick-to-itiveness, perseverance, and you just gotta want it. And you just gotta be able to feel it. And if you can't feel it, you're not gonna feel what I'm trying to give you. It's not gonna be a part of it. So that's what I would tell the young people.
Also, watch out for Barlow knives.
Oh, yeah, watch out for those. Yeah,
If you weren't here for that, you know. I would say, also, I've been working at after-school programs in community centers and schools and churches and all sorts of stuff for over 35 years. And it's important. Now I tell the young folks, and Ed can attest to this also, we both say, and we do see it happening, to connect with each other. You know, you can stand by yourself and make it, but there's always strength in numbers. And when you're down and you need to talk to someone, you need to talk to someone that's doing what you do. So connect. You know, we don't live with each other, but in a sense we do. You know, because at the end of the day, you've created all day, and you need some sort of you need a relief valve, and there's nothing like getting with someone that does what you do, and feed off of their energy also. Again, there's strength in numbers.
Would you all please share with the audience the involvement of Black artists in the origins of the St. James Art Fair, which has grown so hugely?
Well, unfortunately, we have lost Bob Douglas, and Bob Douglas could tell you about that. But let's just start off by saying back in the day that there was a group of artists, and they decided to, let's do an art show. And there was Sam, Bob and all of them associated with the University of Louisville. Nell Peterson, who was the director of the art center school that I went to. So the story I heard is they started this St. James Court Art Fair on a shoestring, on some clothesline at St. James Court, and it grew into that. So that's when it's all began.
And also, it was their way of paying back monies that they didn't have through the school year, back to the gentleman that was part of that, the St. James Association. So he allowed them to go, and as it's, and from what I understand, it started out with just about 4 or 5 artists, and strung across a couple of yards. But then after they graduated and moved on, they liked it so much, it's like, let's expand. And that's what they did. So what you see at St. James now is a result of their beginnings, yeah.
I would like to say thank you all for being here this evening. I really enjoyed being here with you all.
So we have one more question back here, and then we're going to wrap up the program. I have a statement to read on behalf of the panelists and their families.
My name is Demita Adams, so I know Miss Elmer Lucille and Mr. Ed quite well. I don't consider myself an artist. However, I am always promoting, getting words out, as far as, especially now with the way that history is trying to be pretty much muffled and made to disappear. I'm very good friends with Hannah Drake, who has done art exhibits with the elders. And my question, as far as the history, the legacy, keeping things alive, you all said a little bit about what you would say to the next generation, but I'm asking for my generation and as well as everybody in here, because I do feel like it's a responsibility for us to keep the history, the legacy, the stories alive. What are your suggestions and what is your challenge to all of us on doing so and keeping that legacy and history alive?
Let no one tell your story. You tell your story. Then your story will live.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. That was, any other thoughts?
Ken Clay, we love you.
Yeah.
We love you, Carol Jones Clay. We love you, Bernadette Hamilton. We love you, Sherry Duffy. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize my other right hand who works with me day by day, Tamina Karam. Look at her. Love you. And Earl, thank you, baby, for being such a part of all this big family. Yes. And Allison. What? Oh, yeah, that's right. And thank you. And,
Thank you.
oh,
You don't
look,
want to talk.
that's okay.
Okay.
We love him.
Yes.
And we love all of you guys, okay? Thank you for looking out. Yeah, love you.
Thank you all so much for coming and joining us at this time. It's a special moment for you all to be here with us. We are recognizing and giving our flowers while our icons and legends are here to join us.